Today we're going to talk about research. Why we do it. How we do it. Do you know, when I was a student, probably about your age, in elementary school, I thought that research was just copying information, any random group of facts about a subject onto paper. Of course, back then, during the dinosaur age, that's all we had to share our information. And maybe sometimes I would even make a poster or a diorama out of that random information. But now, of course, I know a lot better, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you the right ways to research. All right, Gators, let's talk about questions. Research is answering questions. So let's talk about what makes a good question. We have different kinds of questions. We have thin questions and we have thick questions. So a thin question covers the basic facts. Who or what, when, where. For instance, with my topic of Tyrannosaurus Rex, who or what was a Tyrannosaurus Rex? When did they live? Where did they live? What did they eat? When did they eat? Where did they spend time? Those are the basic thin questions. And those are a very important part of any research project. But it's not the only part. What are thick questions? Thick questions make you think. It's a good way to remember that. Think and thick are very close words. So what do you think about something? How would you feel if? Maybe how would I feel if I lived in the time of Tyrannosaurus Rex? Probably not very safe. Why did the Tyrannosaurus Rex go extinct? And that can be a combination of looking at the evidence I found and putting my own thoughts into it. What would happen if? Maybe what if Tyrannosaurus Rex was really alive, like the movie Jurassic Park? Not very fun. What might happen to people if Tyrannosaurus Rex was still here? So those are thick questions. They go a little deeper than just the information that answers those thin questions. Okay, here's a pretty important part of this lesson, Gators. What are your most trustworthy sources or resources? Where are you going to get your information? Because research, you can't just take the information, even though you might be an expert, at least you think, on the subject. Your information has to be from a source that you can prove. And sometimes the source is you're actually doing research. You're doing an experiment. When you get to probably high school and definitely college, some of your research will be in that mode. But for now, here in elementary school, and we're getting you ready for middle school research as well, we are going to find credible sources. That means a source that you can believe, that you can trust. So obviously, I wouldn't be a good librarian if I didn't talk about books or ebooks. These are books that are written by an expert. We have obviously a good number of them right here in our library. We have both the printed version, the paper version, and we have many, many ebooks also that you can do research on. And you would access them through Destiny Discover and go ahead and read them in your Chromebook and access the information that way for the ebooks. We have databases or databases. I've heard that said both ways. Our databases are a collection of information, of all trustworthy information. When you were younger, you used Pebble Go. And Pebble Go is actually coming out with some resources now for older elementary students, which is really exciting. Encyclopedia Britannica. I spoke about just copying information out of an encyclopedia when I was growing up. The same encyclopedia that I had growing up, the Britannica, we have one copy in the library, but that's certainly not enough for over 1,000 students. So thankfully we have the electronic version, the digital version that you can access through Clever. And I'll show you in a few minutes how to do that. We have other databases like WorldBook and Infobits, and again, you access them through Clever. There are articles written by experts, and you guys read articles all the time in Achieve 3000. So sometimes what teachers or librarians will do is they'll put together a collection of articles for you and assign them to you or give you access to them to find your information. For now, we will not be using the internet, especially Google. And there's a reason for that. But what? What do you mean I can't use Google? Why isn't Google a nice source? I use Google all the time. Well, I use Google all the time too, but I'm also an expert at finding credible information. So let's talk about what Google is. Google is a search engine. I want you to think of a search engine as a big fishing net that a fisherman throw over the side of the boat, and they pull it behind them. And the bigger the boat, the bigger the internet. The bigger the boat, the bigger the net, or the internet. Think of it the same way. And yes, they would catch a lot of fish in that net, but they'd also might pull in a whole bunch of garbage or things that are harmful, like a shark or jellyfish. So that's what Google is. It's a search engine that pulls in a lot of information. Not all of it is true. Not all of it is credible. Not all of it is appropriate for a student to be reading. Google can lead you to credible sources, but it could also lead you to inaccurate, dangerous, or inappropriate information. And we will talk about how to evaluate that information in the future. All right, then, let's talk about how we use nonfiction books for research. And that's print books and ebooks as well. What you do is, of course, you use your nonfiction text features, your table of contents, or your index to locate the information that answers your question. And I suggest that you read the entire chapter if possible, or if it's a very long chapter and that's not possible with the time that you have, at least read the entire paragraph to get an understanding of the information. If you can't understand the information, then the resource that you've picked is not a good one for you. It's especially important when you're reading nonfiction to choose a book that really is readable for you, that you can understand the information. Because if you can't understand the information, you can't put it into your own words, which you have to do when you research. Otherwise, that's considered plagiarism. I didn't know that when I was a student your age, but I do know that now. So when you find the information that you're going to use, you put it into your own words. You don't copy it word for word. And then you will cite your source, which means to give credit. So you just write down either the title of the book or the title of the ebook and the author. There are more complicated ways to cite your sources, but we'll talk about those at a different time.
Okay, Gators. Well, I have a couple of different resources here, and a resource is just someplace that I'm going to get information. And these are all print resources, which means they have pages. They're made of paper. So I have here a nonfiction book. Even though it's drawn, it is a nonfiction book. And what do you think the reason for that? Why wouldn't I have a photograph from my nonfiction book with a Tyrannosaurus Rex? Well, you probably guessed it. It's because they're extinct and we don't actually have pictures of them. So here's a nonfiction book about Tyrannosaurus Rex. Here is a resource book about dinosaurs. But it's not just about Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's also about other dinosaurs as well. And then here I have the volume of the encyclopedia that is T. Hopefully Tyrannosaurus Rex will be an entry in the encyclopedia. And we also have the digital version of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I'll show you that on the next video. So what are the features, the nonfiction text features, to help me locate information quickly in a book? Where would I find them? If you said the table of contents, you were absolutely right. Or if you said the index, you would be right as well. So specifically, my question about T-Rexes was how and what did they eat? Probably because Mrs. Soccio is always hungry. I think I would have made a good T-Rex. Except I like vegetables too. So right here, right in the title, we kind of get an idea of what the Tyrannosaurus Rex eats. The mighty meat eater. So T-Rex is hungry is one chapter. The King of Dinosaurs, The End of the King, T-Rex starts a family. So what chapter do you think I would find the answer to the question about food? Absolutely. T-Rex is hungry. So I would go, if I didn't have time to read the whole book, I would go to chapter 10. And right here I have T-Rex is hungry. And I would read through all of the information. And then I would put that information into my own words. So I would say something like, because I already saw that in the beginning of the book, Tyrannosaurus Rex was a meat eater. It had a very strong sense of smell. It had large claws and sharp teeth. And could gobble down meat easily. So there was a lot of information there, but I put it in my own words. But I still have to give credit to this book. I have to cite the source. I have to, because it's not my information, it came from here. So when I'm citing my source, I would write the title of the book and the author. And that's the only information you have to give for now. When you get to 5th grade, I'll show you a little bit more complicated ways to cite the source. All right, so what if I didn't find the information that I wanted, or find all of the information in that book? I could look in a larger book that has many different kinds of
The same goes for reference books. I chose a really nice, very large reference book about all sorts of dinosaurs, and I did find specific information for Tyrannosaurus Rex within that book. I used the table of contents and the index, and I read the whole section on Tyrannosaurus Rex so I could understand the information, but I chose the information that answered my question. I put it in my own words, and again, I cited my sources. And I'll show you that on our next slide.
All right, and here I have a reference book about dinosaurs. It's not specifically about T-Rexes, but I could look in the index of the book or the table of contents and see if in this big reference book that talks about all sorts of dinosaurs, if I can get any specific information on a T-Rex. All right. So right away I know that from my other book that Tyrannosaurus Rex is a meat eater, so I can look on page 26, or I can look in the index and look specifically. And then Tyrannosaurus Rex is actually mentioned quite a bit. So I'm going to turn to page 24. And there's a whole chapter here about dinosaur diets. So sometimes I have to read the entire article just to get that little bit of information about the dinosaurs I'm interested in. And right here I could see the king, and I know from the other book that Rex means king, which is why they named it Tyrannosaurus Rex, because he was considered the king of dinosaurs, because he was the most fierce. And then here's an interesting article here. Tyrannosaurus Rex is probably the best known and most fearful of the carnivores. So here, if my information was, how big was, if there's one of my questions was, how big was a T-Rex? That would give me some really good information there. Again, I wouldn't copy word for word. I would get the information and try to put it into my own words, but I would have to still cite my source. So it's Dinosaur by, and these are the two authors right here. And if for some reason you don't find any information, or you don't find enough information to answer your questions about your subject, we can use the encyclopedia. This is the print version of the encyclopedia, and there's also a version on Clever of the exact same encyclopedia, but it's the digital one. But I'm going to take a look in here, and in an encyclopedia, everything is arranged in alphabetical order. So I'd have to use the guide words up on top. So Taft, T-A, I know T-Y, I've got quite a ways to go. So I have to find it. T-I, I've got plenty, I know it's going to be right around the end of the book, because Y comes at the end of the alphabet. T-U, we're getting closer. T-U. And it's going to turn your pages up, and look at that, it's actually the guide word. Tyrannosaurus Rex. So there is an article in here about the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And if my question was, let's say, how long ago did the Tyrannosaurus Rex live? Could be my question. So that would answer that. It says right there, T-Rex lived about 80 to 65 million years ago. And it also says where they found the fossil remains. Found in the United States, Canada, and Asia. And scientists believe that T-Rex lived in forests and forest clearings. So I would not, like I said, I would not copy word for word, but I would take the bulk of that information, put it in my own words, and I would have to give credit to the Britannica Student Encyclopedia, Volume T. So, find the information that answers your question, put it in your own words to answer your question, and then write it on your graphic organizer. And that's what we will show you in a moment.
Okay, Gators. Well, here I have my information organizer, which may look somewhat similar to the one your teacher gave you. But as you can see, I've given my sources. I chose to have a digital picture because you guys know me pretty well. You know that drawing is not one of my talents. And I filled in all the information boxes, and I adapted the information I read to my own words. And I gave all my sources, which tells where I got my information from. I'm looking forward to seeing your research. Okay, well that is our lesson on research. And wrapping it up, Just remember some of the points we discussed. Research is answering questions, not just putting random information about a topic. We need to get our information from credible or believable resources or sources. And we have to cite our sources, which means we have to tell where we got that information from. Otherwise, that's something called plagiarizing. That is actually stealing someone else's ideas and information and calling them yours. And stealing is never okay. So I am really looking forward to seeing your research and to seeing what questions you've answered. Have a great day.